Right, let's talk sport. Vassos Alexander is here. Hello.
I feel like we haven't... Hello, Jane. I feel like we haven't quite nailed the name yet.
Well, we haven't. I was thinking Vassos. No, then I thought Alexander the Great.
Oh, well, now we're talking.
Yeah, how about that for you?
Well, you could. But
It's a little bit self-referential, isn't
Oh, I
it?
don't know.
a tiny bit.
Well, it could be rubbish as well. Tennis is our first topic. We're going to celebrate the best of the Times sporting journalism in this slot, which is new to our programme. Now, Carlos Alcaraz has made history. He's become the youngest man to complete a career Grand Slam. He's an absolute legend already. He's only, how old? 20?
He's 22 years old.
Astonishing. And his win at the Australian Open yesterday came after a really exciting couple of weeks of tennis, particularly on the semi-finals day, it has to be said. Now, it was so exciting. The Times is reporting today that it has made the organisers of the Aussie Open think about a change, and they're going to consider making the women play 5 sets instead of the standard 3. From the quarter-final stages on. Now, Vassos, I thought the female players had been asking for this, because they certainly get equal prize money, don't they?
Oh, and have done for decades
which was
now.
a big campaign.
It was, and absolutely, and it's a funny thing, you know, because yes, there's equal prize money, and there's not equal tennis.
Yep.
If you had a ticket to the women's semi-finals on Thursday, you would have watched 2 hours and 56 minutes of tennis,
and that was a good game.
But there were two straight set semi-finals on in the women's side on Thursday, and on the Friday, 2 men's semi-finals both went to 5 sets. So compare 2 hours 56 minutes of tennis for the same price for the men's semi-finals day, you got nearly 10 hours of tennis, 9 hours and 36. And I think Craig Tiley, who's the tournament organiser, is saying, and Stuart Fraser has this in the Times, and I haven't seen it anywhere else, is saying to us that, look, we might have to go best of 5 sets on both, certainly from the quarterfinals onwards. It is a strange thing. You know, I was thinking, are there other sports where kind of women and men play on unequal playing fields? Cross-country running in this country is one of them. It's just sort of just a legacy thing that the women don't run as far as the men from very kind of early age group onwards.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I remember doing interviews over the years on other programmes about, for example, women didn't used to be able to run the marathon, did they? They weren't allowed.
In 1967, as recently as that, somebody called Catherine Switzer entered the Boston Marathon, and she just put K. Switzer so that they didn't know that she was a woman, because it was banned to run a marathon if you were a woman. And in fact, she needed her boyfriend, who was an American football player, to act as her bodyguard, because the organisers of the Boston Marathon tried to physically remove her from the course. And then it took until the 1980s for the International Olympic Committee to sort of catch up and say, actually, OK, no, fine, we can have a women's marathon in as recently as the 1984 Olympics. That was the first time women competed in the marathon.
That's a bit of sporting social history is worth remembering, isn't it? People, you do forget about that sort of stuff quite easily. Is there a women's Tour de France now?
Yes, there is.
Because there was a big battle about that as well. Mm-hmm. It was thought that women couldn't do that. They wouldn't be capable of it.
Well, that was always the argument. And go back to the 1920s. Great film, by the way. It's called Young Woman and the Sea, about somebody called Gertrude Erdeler, who said, look, I'm going to swim, and I'm going to swim the English Channel, which in those days was the greatest athletic feat known on planet Earth. And all the kind of the men in charge went, no, you can possibly do that. And she just flipping did it, and she broke the record, and that record stood for decades. And her ticker tape parade in New York was the biggest there had ever been. She showed women at the time that actually, yes, of course we can do the same as the men can do. And it's sort of taken sport quite a long time to catch up. And I wonder, I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to have an opinion on this.
We like it.
I wonder if tennis is finally sort of catching on. What I would say is you can't have too many 5-hour matches because you wouldn't fit them all in.
So hence after the quarter-final stage.
Or the other option is to make all Grand Slam matches, men and women, best of 5 sets, but have the tiebreak at 4 games all, not 6 games all.
All right, let's just bring in the listeners. Colin has already sent a message ages ago, actually, earlier in the programme, saying, frankly, he just doesn't want to watch a game of tennis that goes on for longer than 3 sets. That's plenty for him. And this is another one from Becky, who says she was at the Mahut versus Isner match at Wimbledon. This is the legendary game. I hope I've pronounced the first player's name right.
Nicola Mahut,
Mahut, sorry. It became the longest tennis match ever. I would humbly suggest suggest, she says, that the men should be switching to the best of 3 rather than getting the women to play the best of 5. Because of racket technology and player fitness, games are getting longer and longer. I'm a massive tennis fan, but I wouldn't sit down to watch the whole of a best of 5 match anymore.
Well, that one went over 3 days
Yes,
on
that was
Court 18. I remember that. In fact, the last game I commentated on, I was one of the BBC radio commentators for a long time. And the last match I commentated on also involved John Isner and a guy called Kevin Anderson from South Africa. And that went on so long, that Wimbledon semi-final. It started at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had to cancel my wedding anniversary dinner reservation because I was still on court at 32-30 rather, in the final set when it finally came off court. Right. And they had another semi-final. I think it was Djokovic and Nadal had to go on court after that. So yes, no, they've sorted that out because everyone now plays a tie-break in the 5th set at 6 games all. So there's going to be no kind of day-long matches anymore.
He really is Alexander the Great, isn't he? It's a great
by the way,
anecdote.
have you seen Mike in Tooting?
Well, I think I want to go with Phil, but do you want to read out Mike in Tooting
Mike in
first?
Tooting's suggestion is thought sport.
Oh, come on.
Oh, I think that's good.
That's it. Yeah, that's very good.
But Phil's is pause for sport.
Also
I like that.
They're very good.
We've got a tie break already.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. Best of how many sets?
Yeah, I mean, the women, I have to say, the players of the moment who've been asked about this, Sabalenka, who is, I mean, she's a very fit woman, phenomenal player. She says, although the 5 sets might actually favour her, she's not keen either.
Well, I mean, you are asking her to do more work, I suppose, in one sense. And in the other sense, you have to. A 5-hour match and a 3-hour match are very different things. And at the moment, she's only really trained to go as far as 3.5 hours. And so, you would have to do some, extra work, extra training. And yes, the risk of injury is definitely there in a longer match. So, of course, and Coco Gauff, who's another one, who's extremely kind of physically fit. And you would imagine that she would be one of the players who would benefit from longer matches. She's also said, to be honest, nah, not so much.
Can we just discuss, it's slightly the fiscal elephant in the room here. Paul says, not only do they play less sets, they bring in less revenue. So I'm afraid women shouldn't get paid the same as men. Sports and entertainment, and of course the revenue is also really important. That should dictate earnings and prize money.
They have this argument at the French Open, which is run by Amélie Mauresmo, Andy Murray's former coach, former Wimbledon champion, and a woman who always gets criticised for putting the men's matches on in that sort of highlight Hollywood slot in the evening. She doesn't put women's matches on there because she says, look, the crowds come and see the Alcaraz and the Sinner, and with all due respect, we want a longer 5-set match. And maybe if Craig Tiley, the Australian Open head of that, has his way, maybe if the 5-set matches do, and if it happens in Australia, it'll happen everywhere else pretty soon, then maybe that argument goes away.
Okay, I mean, what I hadn't realised about the Australian Open is how much bigger it is as an event than Wimbledon. I always think that's the daddy of tennis tournaments. It was not. I mean, the total attendance at Wimbledon was 500,000 people there or thereabouts. And how many did the Aussie Open get?
Oh yeah, it was like 55% more.
Yeah, a record total attendance of 1.37 million.
It's extraordinary.
That's absolutely amazing.
But this guy, Craig Tiley, he knows what he's doing. I mean, he makes it a 3-week jamboree. They had this huge thing, this 1-point shootout for $1 million Australian dollars.
That was a great idea.
Wasn't it great? They had celebrities. They had an amateur won it, which was fantastic, beating Yannick Sinner in the final. I mean, just great ideas, bringing the crowds in, and they have a music festival on the side and they have a food festival on the side, and it's just become that one of the real focal points of the Australian summer, this Australian Open tennis. And Wimbledon very much needs to expand if they're going to even remotely follow suit.
Yeah.
How much would it cost you to get a ticket to the Australian Open final?
That's a very good question, and one that I have no idea about.
Because you always get to go for, well, it's not free, you're working.
Yeah, I get paid. I get paid.
Well, let's look that up, because, I mean, it's a big court, isn't it? They're definitely, they can pack them in.
Yeah, the Rod Laver Arena is a big one. I think the biggest court in the world is at Flushing Meadows, the US Open. that must be 25,000. But yeah, they're expensive things. Australian and Wimbledon tickets. Of course they are. This is absolute elite sport entertainment. I bought some tickets for a friend of mine for a football match yesterday.
Note that
again.
he bought some tickets.
He's an all-round great guy.
Aren't I just? And I was surprised at how much Premier League football ticket. I know that yes, I go for free because I work there and stuff. But if you don't buy these things every day, you forget that this is a real treat. So actually, the thing that Craig Tidey's first saying about the 5 sets, if people are going to pay. Like the Premier League football tickets for Fulham Spurs, I got for a friend of mine, was 73 quid each. It's just a lot of money to go to a football game, but then it's the top of the top of the top. And, if you're going to go to women's semi-finals there at the Australian Open and pay hundreds of dollars to go there, and you're going to leave 2 hours and 50 minutes later after 2, you might feel a little bit shortchanged. That's what he's saying.
Sure. Thank you. I think you've made a promising start in this new role. That's Vassos. I do like thought sport.
Sport.
We'll reconvene tomorrow.
Okay, I'll tell you what, why don't you and I have a mud wrestle over it? Because I like balls for sport. We'll sell tickets.
Actually, we'd probably earn a few quid there. Some good idea.